Two snowmobilers cut across a frozen trail in northern Sweden. Through a gap in the snow, they spot the outline of a car. Buried under a meter of ice and powder, they assume it's been abandoned for years. Then one of them wipes the window, and something inside moves. His name was Peter Skyllberg. He was 44 years old. Originally from Örebro in central Sweden, by the winter of 2011, his life was unraveling. He owed nearly $200,000. A court had ordered the seizure of his property. His girlfriend had left, and piece by piece, Peter had withdrawn from the world. He was last seen buying bread and coffee at a gas station near Umeå in the far north. Nobody knows exactly when he drove his car down that narrow forest trail, just a few kilometers from Sweden's main E4 highway. But at some point in mid-December, the snow began to fall, and it didn't stop. Within days, his car was completely buried, and no one on Earth knew he was there. The temperature outside plunged to minus 30 degrees Celsius. That's 22 below zero Fahrenheit. The kind of cold that kills exposed skin in minutes. But inside the car, something strange was happening. Snow is 95% trapped air. When it packs around a structure, it acts like insulation. The same principle that keeps an igloo warm inside, even in the worst Arctic conditions. A well-built igloo can maintain 16 degrees Celsius using nothing but body heat, even when the outside temperature hits minus 45. Peter's car, entombed under a meter of snow, had become an accidental igloo. The interior temperature hovered just below freezing, cold enough to be dangerous, but warm enough to survive. Peter had a sleeping bag. He had no food, and his only source of water was the snow he could scrape from inside the car. Day after day, in total darkness, he lay there, and the world above moved on without him. Here's what makes this story even more unsettling. Nobody reported Peter Skyllberg missing. Not a friend, not a relative, not a neighbor. He had been living in his car for weeks before the snowfall. He was a man who had slipped through every crack in the system. His debts had consumed everything. A personal diary, later recovered, revealed entries filled with desperation about his finances, about losing his home, about having nowhere to turn. By Christmas 2011, Peter had been trapped for nearly a week. By New Year's, 2 weeks. The snow kept falling, and no one was looking. As the weeks passed, Peter's body began to change. His core temperature, normally 37 degrees Celsius, started to drop. Slowly, steadily. His heart rate slowed. His breathing became shallow. His metabolism, the engine that burns calories to keep you alive, ground almost to a halt. This is where the science gets extraordinary. Dr. Stefan Brandt, who studied the case, believed Peter's body entered what he called a hibernation-like state. His temperature settled at 31 degrees Celsius, 87.8 Fahrenheit. In medicine, that's classified as moderate hypothermia. At that temperature, most people lose consciousness. Many die, but Peter's body had found a narrow corridor of survival. Like a bear in winter, his systems had dialed down to the absolute minimum needed to sustain life. He lost 19 kilograms, 42 pounds, as his body consumed its own reserves, muscle, fat, everything it could burn to keep the heart beating one more hour. The medical literature says a healthy adult with access to water can survive roughly 30 days without food. The most extreme documented cases, the Irish hunger strikers of 1981, lasted approximately 60 days. Peter Skyllberg was pushing against the absolute outer boundary of human endurance, and he was doing it alone, in the dark, in a frozen car, in a Swedish forest, with no one coming. Forensic physician Jason Payne James later noted that at this stage, cognitive function would have been severely compromised. Peter may not have fully understood where he was, how long he'd been there, or whether anyone would ever find him. He was surviving, but he was barely there. February 17, 2012. Two men on snowmobiles are cutting through a forest trail near Umeå. The path is buried under more than a meter of snow. At the end of the trail, they see what looks like the shape of a vehicle. They figure it's been dumped there, maybe an old wreck left to rust. But one of them decides to take a closer look. He clears the snow from a window, and through the frosted glass, something moves. They call emergency services immediately. Rescue crews arrive and begin digging. It takes time. The car is completely encased. When they finally force the door open, they find a man in a sleeping bag, barely conscious, skeletal, alive. Police officer Ebbe Nieberg, one of the first responders, said Peter could barely speak. The only words he managed were snow and eat. Peter was rushed to Norrlands University Hospital in Umeå. Dr. Ulf Segerberg, the chief medical officer, called it a case in a lifetime. His body temperature was 31 degrees. He had lost 42 pounds. He was severely dehydrated and malnourished. But here's the remarkable part. Peter did not require intensive care. He was placed in an ordinary hospital ward. His body, having operated at the bare minimum for 2 months, began to recover with surprising speed once warmth and nutrition were restored. Within days, he was expected to be discharged. The igloo that his car had become had kept him in that narrow window between life and death, cold enough to slow everything down, but not cold enough to kill him. After his rescue, Peter Skyllberg declined every interview request. He refused all visitors. Through the hospital, he passed along a single message, that he was doing better and he wanted to be left alone. The story went global. British tabloids sent paparazzi. Discovery Channel produced a documentary without his participation. Scientists debated whether his survival represented a genuine case of human hibernation or simply the outer limit of the igloo effect combined with extraordinary luck. But Peter himself never said a word about those 60 days. Whatever he experienced in that frozen car, the darkness, the hunger, the silence, he kept it. And perhaps that's the most human part of this entire story. A man who fell through every safety net, survived something that should have been impossible, and then simply asked the world to let him be.